Emet-Selch stood at Mournhold's broken gate. Wind-carved stones whispered his final words. Remember us. Remember that we once lived. The city's silence was no tomb, it was a mirror. Emet-Selch stood at walls to hold memory, not enemies. Choice remember us. The streets did not crumble from siege, but from the weight of what he knew. A monument to absence, a grave dug by his own hands. A monument to absence, structure. First the collapsed city's silence was no tomb, it was a mirror. Emet-Selch's Mournhold was not a cage for others. It was a mausoleum for himself. The seabed's facsimile of Amaurot bore no chansonly the weight of a king's unspoken guilt. Stone by stone he built a tomb he could not escape. Did he know the walls would crumble as he did? The city's silence is not emptiness. It is the echo of a man who became his own monument. Amaurot's ghost in the deep does not mourn the first, it mourns the architect. What if the final blueprint was never for others? What if it was a script for his own unraveling? The drowned halls whisper no threats, they whisper fulfillment. A self-erected obelisk, its shadow stretching to his last breath. The architect's hands shaped the prison, then shaped the key, then shattered both. The convocation of 14 wove law into Aetheri's clouds. Their dominion was order, a fragile thing. Emet-Selch observed, he did not question. He listened to the silence between their decrees. In that void he carved his own. His hands, once shaping life, turned to stone. Amaurot's spires, hollowed prayers to the living, became his first confession. He built the seabed city after the first's fall, not as a tomb for others, as a mirror. The memorial's foundations drank the salt of ancient wars. Its arches echoed with the weight of unspoken grief. What did he mourn? A world he never held, or the truth that creation and erasure are the same hand? The convocation saw only defiance. They did not know his city was no weapon. It was a ledger, every pillar a tally of his sins. Every shadow a debt owed to time. He did not seek to trap the first, he sought to trap himself. To anchor his name where even the gods could not reach. Dread blooms in monuments. The city's silence was his answer to the convocation's laws. A contract written in the language of dust. He built it knowing the sea would reclaim it, knowing he would become its first and final resident. What architect does not fear the weight of their own design? His masterpiece was not Amaurot, not the convocation's fragile order. It was this, a city where the architect's name is forgotten but the pain endures. A monument to hubris, a cathedral of sorrow, his legacy, written in stone that weeps. Stone cannot weep, yet the city does. Emberlight carved its spires, sorrow shaped its streets. Emperor Saluzas Galvus did not rule an empire, wove a shroud for the dead, stitching gold thread into the coffins of his gods. The Allegan crown became a chisel. The Garlean banners a canvas, each bridge he built was a bier, each triumphal arch a memento mori. Azure dragoon, crystal exarched idols etched beside the names of the first, whose absence hollowed every victory. Amaurot's halls glowed with knowledge, but the library's heart held only a single scroll, how to grieve for eternity. The silent city rose last, no throne, no temple. Only a vast, empty forum floor of black glass, ceiling of frozen fire, a stage for the final act, a mirror for the architect. Here Saluzas Galvus laid down his crown. Here Emet-Selch knelt, not to pray, to listen, to the echo of a voice that had vanished millennia ago. What is a monument if not a contract between memory and time? He built his empire to outlast the stars, yet the stars endured, and he did not. The paradox unravels in the arithmetic of loss. A creator's hands cannot hold what they destroy. Every wonder he raised was a weight on the scales. Every monument a brick in his own tomb. The silent city was never meant to mourn the first. It was designed to contain the man who refused to let them die. The architect's blueprint was clear. To cheat oblivion, he needed to become its subject. To weave eternity, he had to unravel himself. The forum's glass floor perfect, unbroken weights. For the day the weeping stone cracks under the weight of a god who finally learns, some grief cannot be held, it must be released. And in that release, even empires turn to ash. The sky fractures, Zodiark's voice splits the Ira demand for sacrifice. Venet turns away, Harshephant retreats, 1,000 hearts beat in the hollow of their throats. Emet-Selch steps forward. Not in fear, not in duty. In the silence between breaths, he becomes the first to choose the altar. his hands, scarred by time, press against the void. The god's hunger is a promise he accepts. Mournhold rises from that packed city of stone and sorrow, its foundations laid with the weight of his surrender. Did he know? The price of shaping destiny is being shaped by it. His name becomes a shadow over the spires. The streets whisper his choice. The towers lean like mourning widows. Xenos, centuries later, will call it a tomb. He will be wrong. Mournhold is no prison. It is an epitaph. The architect's final act was to build a place where his end could be written in light, where the first's wrath would not need to follow him, where time itself could bury what no blade could touch. A god's grief is a slow fire. It chars the hands that feed it. Emet-Selch, who outlived kingdoms, could not outlive himself. The city's name is his answer to the question no oracle dared ask. What does a man do when eternity is too heavy to carry? He builds a monument. He becomes its first stone, and when the warrior raises her sword, when the heavens crack again, Mournhold does not tremble. It welcomes the strike. For in its heart the architect waits, not as a prisoner, as a promise kept. The narrator's voice breaks here, a single choked breath. The camera holds on the city's silhouette, its spires piercing a blood-red sky. The name of the dead city is not a curse, it is a signature. To live is to grieve is to remember. Emet-Selch's city was no prison for the first, no weapon of spite. Its foundations drank his tears, its silence his confession. What he surrendered was not flesh but the right to weep. The silent city did not trap his foes. It cradled the void where his humanity once burned, a mausoleum for a god who forgot how to mourn. Every shadow there whispers, this is what you became. The spires of Mournhold did not rise to defy the first. They rose to cradle Emet-Selch's unraveling soul. Each archway bore the echo of a Scion's vow, each pillar the weight of a life surrendered to his cause. The Ascians bound Aetheres to his source, stitching a wound that bled forever into the fabric of existence. Mercy, he called it, a lie woven in silence. The city's corridors stretched like frozen tears. He walked them alone, tracing the scars of choices that turned allies to ghosts. The Scions who stayed thee became part of the stone, their whispers trapped in the mortar. To grieve is to remember. He carved these words into Mournhold's heart, yet forgot they were his own epitaph. The rejoining fractured more than Aetheres. It shattered Emet-Selch's claim to compassion. He built a monument to atone, but atonement demands a self to atone for. Every chamber held a memory he could not bury, every vault a promise he had broken. The city he named Mournhold became his silent confessor. He believed grief would anchor him. Instead, it became a tide. To live is to grieve. The phrase haunted him, a clockwork curse. He etched it into every street, every shattered window pane, yet the words turned on him, binding his purpose to his undoing. Mournhold was never a prison for others. It was a cage he designed for the part of himself he could not bear to face. The spires still stand. Not as triumph but testament. A city built to hold sorrow became the thing that swallowed him whole. Its stones are his confession, its silence his requiem. The Scion's echoes remain, the first shadow lingers, and in the heart of it all no god, only a man who forgot how to mourn. The stones of Mournhold breathe. Cold marble inhales time, exhales memory. In the hall of the first, where light fractures through stained glass like fractured oaths, Emet-Selch's shadow stretches thinner than the parchment of ancient wars. He was once the orator, voice of Ishgard's wars, knight who carved faith into steel. Now his footprints in the dust of this chamber are erased by the wind he never felt. The city's spires, once his crowning hymn to order, pierce his essence like needles. Each tower was a promise, *I will bind chaos. I will make permanence, but permanence is a lie woven by those who forget they are mortal. The crystal exarch sigils, etched into every archway, now hum with a resonance not his own. The crystals he once wielded to channel the Ascians' hunger now starve him, their facets reflecting not power, but the hollow where his soul should burn. He walked as Grahatia's chosen, a god among men. Men do not mourn gods, men do not remember gods, and so he built a city to force their hands. Mournhold was never for the first, it was for the last. The Scions' echoes in these halls their footsteps, their whispers were not to trap a god. They were to ensure his voice did not vanish with the dawn. The warrior of light's journey carved his name from myth, not as villain, not as martyr. as a man who mistook his architecture for salvation. The Scions found his final words not in battle, but in the silence between heartbeats. Remember us, remember that we once lived. The paradox, he built a mausoleum to preserve life, only to become its caretaker. The city's air tastes of iron and regret. In its depths, where the first light was meant to be interred, Emet-Selch's spirit coils, a serpent devouring its own tail. The warrior of light saw the truth, a god who forgot to weep for himself. Now the stones mourn for him, their cold embrace is his requiem. His failure was not in creation, it was in believing permanence could exist where even gods blade. Mournhold stands, the spires still pierce the sky. But in its heart no god waits, only a man etched into stone, learning too late that to be remembered is to be imprisoned. Mournhold's spires still whisper, not to gods but to time. A city built to mourn, now its stones press down on the architect's final breath. He carved his penance into foundation and archway, unaware the weight of his remorse would fracture the age itself. The final days returned through Fandaniel's blade, not as punishment, but as consequence. Emet-Selch's atonement became the spark that ended Zodiark's cycle and Hydaelyn's reign. His monument did not delay doom, it hastened it. Now the air hums with the silence between heartbeats. A spirit lingers not to rule but to reckon. The corridors echo with unasked questions. What is a god without a world to save? The city he designed as a tomb for his sins now cradles the bones of an era. Its walls hold the ache of a man who sought to outrun eternity, only to find it waiting in the mortar. Mournhold is no prison, no shrine. It is the place where ambition and atonement cancel each other out. The Ether does not reclaim this place, it forgets. And in that forgetting, Emet-Selch's name dissolves not as erasure, but as release. Two men stood at the precipice of creation, one raised a light, the other a tomb. Venat's Hydaelyn became a cradle for the living. Emet-Selch's Mournhold became a vault for the dying. What divides them is not ideology but consequence. A god's mercy, a man's elegy, the calamity is not a debt unpaid. It is a letter postmarked by another's hand. Venat refused to write it. Emet-Selch composed it in ash. He did not build his city to defy the first. He built it to house the reply to a letter he had already received. Every spire a stanza, every shadow a signature. The sorrow he called a monument became a noose. His grief was not a choice, it was an inheritance. The Ether does not forget, it waits. And when the cycle returned, when the storm found its shape, the city stood ready, a penitent's shroud. No trap, no triumph, a surrender scripted in advance. Venat's light renews. Emet-Selch's darkness completes the verse. The architect did not imprison the world, he imprisoned himself. His sorrow, that hollow hymn, became the price others had already paid. A calamity not of rage but resignation, a finale not stolen but staged. Mournhold does not weep for the fallen, it whispers their names. And in its silence the cycle breathes, not broken, not bound, only rewritten. Remember us, remember that we once lived. Emet-Selch's final breath etched a requiem into Mournhold's stones, not a tomb for enemies, but a mirror to his unraveling. The city's silence did not bury the past, it wove it into his bones, each spire a memory, each shadow a confession. To mourn was to immortalize the wound. His hands, which shaped the world, became its gravestone. The cycle did not break him, he built its prison first, his final act a self-fulfilling echo. Now the wind carries his whisper through hollow halls, a name without a self. Mournhold does not weep, it remembers, and in that remembering the architect becomes the mourned. Remember us, remember that we once lived. What sin did Emet-Selch carve into Mournhold's stones to absolve? The Scions of the 7th Dawnhigh's only family walked its halls. Did he mourn their loss or his? The city's silence hums with unspoken oaths. Each shadowed archway whispers of a debt paid in dust. Now footsteps approach, not his, the next architect's. Their hands will shape a new monument, a new reckoning. What ghosts will their blueprints summon? What price will they pay to build? The wind carries no answers.